Shocking revelation. They found evidence of biblical prophecies coming true. Few knew what truly happened that night in the dusty town of Jericho. A deep hush hung over the streets, broken only by the whispers of those who had seen the unimaginable. Figures cloaked in mystery moved among the shadows, their eyes flickering with secrets untold. The air was electric with anticipation. Rumors swirled like a desert wind. Perhaps the whispers had merit. It was late in the evening when a sudden light illuminated the stone face of the city walls. This was not an ordinary glow. It pulsated, shifting in hue from crimson to gold, drawing the eyes of anyone within miles. Even the sun, setting far beyond the distant hills, seemed to bow before this strange phenomenon. Was this a sign? An omen? For the people of Jericho, such wonders were both fascinating and terrifying. In the heart of the chaos, Joshua stood on a hillock, bathed in the strange light. His heart thundered like a drum, each beat echoing the fears and hopes of the Israelites. Just days before, he had received a divine message. The walls of Jericho would fall, and through faith, the land would be theirs. Yet doubt not at him. Would they truly be blessed? Could this radiant light be the answer to his fervent prayers? Rumors abounded of miracles that had unfolded throughout the land. Bitter enemy armies crumbled before the might of the Israelite banner. Waters parted at command, and whispers of healing trailed behind unassuming prophets. The sacred texts hinted at these occurrences, but now, they felt almost tangible, like the grainy texture of sand slipping through one's fingers. With every heartbeat, tension gripped the people, revealing the delicate balance between hope and despair. Then, the air crackled. A resonant shout echoed through the night. March. The order rolled out like thunder, and the Israelites began to assemble. Faces reflected a mix of excitement and dread, some trembling with unanswered questions. Small children clutched their mothers, eyes wide as pools of uncertainty. Could they trust this call? Would they see the glory, or were they stepping into darkness? As they began their march, the light intensified, bathing the scene in a surreal glow. Breath caught in throats. The ground trembled, not just from their feet, but as if the earth itself responded to the fervor of their advance. They marched in unison, a rhythmic heartbeat of faith echoing with each step. They felt it. Something monumental was about to unfold. Yet, could they withstand the weight of what was coming? The tension mounted, thick as a storm cloud hovering above anticipation. Everyone held their breath, hearts pounding, caught between disbelief and fervent hope. What lay beyond the walls? Would they be greeted by the victory long promised, or the shattering despair of failure? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the Israelites marched forward, a hush fell over the encampment. Even the stars seemed to dim in response to the fervor that surged through the crowd. Joshua led them with a steady resolve, though inwardly he battled a tempest of thoughts. Each step brought him closer to the moment of truth, yet whispered doubts curled around his heart like tendrils of smoke. What happened next was extraordinary. The ground beneath their feet thrummed, an almost palpable energy surged through the air. The familiar sounds of night chirping crickets and the rustle of leaves were eclipsed by the sharp silence that enveloped them. As they approached the formidable walls of Jericho, the strange light seemed to pulse in time with the united heartbeats of the Israelites. It was as if the city itself trembled at their approach, either in fear of the burgeoning faith before it or in recognition of the power of the God of Israel. Today, we claim what is ours, Joshua called out, his voice unwavering. Let the walls of Jericho hear our faith, for we come not just as conquerors, but as bearers of a promise. The band of Israelites surged forward, emboldened by his words, and for a moment, time stood still. Many closed their eyes, summoning every ounce of faith they possessed, trusting in what could not be seen. Then, in a break from the extraordinary stillness, a single trumpet sounded. The resonance filled the air, reverberating against the walls of the city like the heartbeat of a mighty beast. It was followed by a chorus of horns. The sound wove through the night like a tapestry of defiance. Joshua had instructed them to blow their trumpets as a proclamation, a declaration that the moment of truth had arrived. But as they stood there, hearts racing, the walls loomed large, unyielding and cold. How could their faith, mere breath against stone, do anything to dismantle the barriers that held the city captive? For generations, stories of Jericho's strength had echoed through Israel, tales of soldiers who had perished trying to breach its defenses. Yet now, they found themselves on the brink of an unimaginable act of faith. The metallic taste of tension filled the air. Would the sound of their trumpets shatter the anticipation, or merely bounce off the ancient stones, mocking their struggle? The first light of dawn began to break on the horizon, casting hues of orange and pink that danced in the strange light still surrounding them. But deep inside, Joshua felt a stirring. He remembered in that moment the words of the Lord that had ignited his mission. "Be strong and be courageous, for I am with you." Perhaps it was not the act of marching or the sound of their horns that would bring victory, but the simple act of belief, each heart beating in synchronization with a divine promise. As the trumpets continued to blow, he inhaled deeply and planted his staff firmly in the ground. The walls had stood for centuries, but deep inside the faithful thrummed the heartbeat of a new covenant, a force the universe would bend to answer. Then, deeper echoes surged through the air, drowning out their own voices. A distant rumble, as if the earth were murmuring in response to their cries for liberation, reached their ears. Joshua looked at his fellow Israelites, searching their faces for the same glimmer of fervor that burned within him. Would they remain steadfast? Would they allow faith to drown out fear? Even when faced with the seemingly insurmountable, they pressed on, refusing to yield to uncertainty. But the question hung in the air, unanswered. What would bring down the walls? Was it their collective faith or something greater that awaited them just beyond those barriers? As the dawn deepened, a fragile light illuminated the weary faces of the Israelites, each one reflecting a mixture of fervor and uncertainty. The air was thick with anticipation, an electrifying energy that seemed to vibrate within their very bones. The sound of the trumpets filled the atmosphere, a cacophony of sound heralding their determination to fulfill the divine promise. Joshua stood resolute, his heart in elongated prayer stretching toward heaven. He glanced at each tribe, feeling their fears and hopes woven into a tapestry that was both beautiful and daunting. It occurred to him, in that sacred moment, that perhaps their struggle was not merely against stone and mortar, but against the very fabric of doubt that threatened to unravel them from within. Suddenly, the vibrations beneath their feet intensified, resonating with the rhythm of their faith. It was as if the ground beneath Jericho had been waiting, holding its breath for centuries, anticipating a moment such as this. The air shimmered, and an unseen force seemed to stir in response to their unwavering call. It drew Joshua in like a moth to a flame. Could it be that the city's storied strength was but a facade, hiding the deeper truth of their existence? Was Jericho itself caught in a web of prophecy, bound to witness the unfolding of a divine promise? "Brothers and sisters," he called out, raising his voice above the din of the trumpets and the rustling of the soldiers' sandals upon the earth. "Let us not just march, but let us pray. Let our collective voices rise as one, united in spirit, resonating with the promise given to our forefathers." As if fueled by his words, the Israelites began to chant, their prayers weaving through the sound of the trumpets, mingling into a single plea. Yet the sound reverberating against the walls was not just a humble request for victory. It became a declaration of existence, affirming that they were no longer mere wanderers in the desert, but destined inheritors of the land promised to them. In that moment of fervent supplication, an unexpected wind stirred, rattling the leaves and tousling the hair of those assembled. Whispers of ancient prophecies swirled among them, tales of walls crumbling, of strongholds laid bare before the power of faith. Joshua felt a flutter of doubt twist in his gut. Were they not but mortals daring to challenge the impossibility laid before them? But then he recalled the stories his father had told him, of the miracles wrought through faith, stories that breathed life into the pages of their past. Prophecies that weren't just words. They were anchors in the stormy seas of uncertainty. Suddenly, a faint rumbling echoed through the air, louder now, not just beneath their feet but around them. Could it be the response of the heavens to their faithful proclamation? The long-forgotten tales came rushing back, tales of how the power of belief could shatter stone, that which was deemed insurmountable could crumble before a united heart. Again, blow your trumpets, Joshua commanded, the urgency of his spirit igniting a fire in the hearts of his people. More fervently now, the horns rang out, echoing the battle cry of their faith. With each blast, the walls trembled, and the sound traveled further, reverberating off the very edges of existence. Joshua looked toward Jericho, sensing a shift, an awakening. Were the very stones beginning to shift in recognition of their perseverance? And as the sounds of their declaration filled the sky, Joshua could not shake the feeling that something beyond them was at work, something greater than mere circumstance, a divine choreography crafted by the Maker of all. The question gnawed at him amidst the chaos. Could their faith, paired with ancient prophecies, unlock the mystery behind the walls? Or was it merely delusion, an echo of fleeting hope in the face of a movable stone? As the dawn continued its ascent, illuminating the land with a golden hue, Joshua pondered the profound truth that remained unspoken. What happens when human resolve collides with divine purpose? And at that intersection, what becomes of fear, and what becomes of the faith that dares to believe against all odds? As the sun cast its golden rays across the dusty ground, Joshua stood at the forefront of his people, mindful of their hopes encased in trembling hearts. With every trumpet blast and prayerful shout, he felt the air thickening, charged with a divine promise. In that moment, doubt receded like shadows before the dawn, illuminating a pathway fraught with uncertainty but rich with potential. The walls of Jericho loomed ahead, imperious and intimidating, yet Joshua sensed something transformative was brewing just beyond their stone facades. It was as if the very spirit of the land was awakening, reverberating with the ancient cries of their ancestors. Could it be that these stones, once symbols of oppression, were now becoming vessels for liberation? Peering into the eyes of his people, he saw not only determination but also a flicker of fear. What lay ahead was shrouded in enigma. The journey that brought them to this point had been long and arduous, marked by trials that strained their unity and faith. Yet, against the backdrop of Jericho's towering walls, that unity was palpable. Each soul intertwined in the common thread of their shared story, one woven through centuries of aching longing and divine intervention. The air trembled still as their voices echoed into the horizon, infused with the hope that had spurred them from the clutches of despair. Men and women, young and old, gave themselves over to the rhythm of faith that urged them forward. It was not merely the stones they sought to conquer, but the very essence of the prophecy that had guided them since the days of Moses. Let us not waver, Joshua implored, his voice rising above the cacophony. For in our faith lies a power more profound than we can comprehend. His words floated into the atmosphere, mingling with prayer and desire, carving their intentions into the very fabric of existence. Then, as if in acknowledgement of his plea, the ground beneath them gave way to a distant rumble, a sound that stirred the air with a palpable tension. An ancient energy seemed to course through their midst, a thread of connection to the promises once made. The stories of their forebears flashed through Joshua's memory of the Red Sea parted, of the manna falling from heaven. These were not just histories. They were the very foundation on which their faith stood. Yet a stillness fell upon him, mingled with an unsettling anticipation. Was this the moment when the prophecies would unfold, or merely the precursor to a tempest? Joshua remained acutely aware of the choice before them. Would they embrace the truth of their calling or succumb to the clamor of disbelief? As he gazed out at Jericho, he noticed how the wind swept gently over the walls, ruffling garments, stirring thoughts. What if this moment was a pivotal juncture, not just for them, but for all future generations? The walls of Jericho were more than mere stone. They stood as a testament to every battle faced, every prayer uttered, each promise holding weight in the balance of faith. The trumpets sounded once more, an echo reverberating not just against the unwavering stone, but within the very souls of the Israelites. Did the walls tremble in response to the fervor of their prayers or in dread of the divine promise that hung heavily in the air? Suddenly, amidst the chorus of belief and fear, a moment of stillness settled, an unexpected pause that demanded introspection. Joshua felt compelled to ask himself, was faith a weapon, a gentle embrace, or perhaps both? Was it the surrender to divine will that would unlock the mystery of these walls, or the call to action that would breathe life into prophecy? Conviction stirred within him, igniting a question that lingered in the air. What happens when we stand on the precipice of belief? Can faith truly move mountains? Or do we find ourselves wrestling with the very essence of what it means to trust? The journey towards Jericho was not just a march towards a tangible goal, but an exploration of the heights and depths of faith itself. As the reverberations of the trumpets receded, an unsettling quiet settled among the throng of Israelites. They stood in a circle around Joshua, heartbeats syncing with the unyielding thrum of expectation that pulsed through the ground beneath their feet. The air was thick with unspoken words, heavy with the weight of their shared history. In that silence, an unexpected thought struck Joshua, the notion of remembering not just their glory but their struggles. In the shadows of Jericho's high walls, echoes of disobedience and doubt while wandering in the wilderness gnawed at him. How many times had their ancestors faltered? In their urge to fashion idols of gold, had they drifted away from the very purpose that guided their ancestors through the desert? He could not let such a fate befall them now. With a firm resolve, he raised his hand, catching the attention of the multitude. Brothers and sisters, let us remember our path. We are not just conquerors of land, but bearers of a legacy. Let the stories of our past be both our guide and our strength. His voice rang clear, igniting flickers of remembrance amongst the people. He spoke of the 10 Commandments, etched in stone, embodying the divine relationship established on Sinai. He shared the anguish of the 40 years, thirsting not only for water, but for a deeper communion with their Creator. Joshua sensed a stirring, as tales old as time began to dance upon their lips, stories of resilience amidst the tempest, hope ignited in the bleakest of circumstances. Yet, he also recognized an unsettling truth. The heart of Israel was still learning to trust. Was this moment to confront Jericho a culmination or simply another chapter in their ongoing saga? Joshua looked upon their uncertain faces, and he felt a flicker of doubt himself. Had he prepared them adequately for what lay ahead? His thoughts drifted to Rahab, the scarlet thread that hung from her window. Was she not a testament to the power of redemption? A reminder that within the confines of a city marked by judgment, there resided an opportunity for grace. People from the most unexpected places could hold the key to understanding what lay behind those thick walls. What had she seen? Could she show them how to merge mercy with strength? Just as he began to ponder the implications of this, one of the elders stepped forward, an elderly man whose eyes sparkled with wisdom accrued over decades. Joshua, he began, his voice steady yet gentle. The walls of Jericho may be fortified, but what of the walls within us? Are we ready to challenge our own fears? Can we truly follow this divine call with a faith unshakable? The question lingered in the air, embroidered with crinkles of anxiety and excitement, pressing against the threshold of awareness. Joshua's heart surged with understanding this moment belonged to all of them. They must wrestle not only with the physical stronghold of Jericho, but with the very barriers they had constructed within their hearts. Was it not the inner walls that often crumbled before the external? Reflecting on this, Joshua gathered his breath, allowing the gravity of this call to envelop him and his people. Our journey, he declared, is not merely a march to victory, but a battle to embody the faith that fuels us. His words soared with fervor, stirring their spirits to delve deeper into what it meant to trust God's promises. As the sun began its slow descent behind Jericho, casting long shadows across the ground, a question twinkled like a distant star. Joshua wondered, would they find victory in conquering Jericho, or would true triumph emerge from unearthing faith within their own hearts? The mystery lingered, tantalizingly undone, just like the formidable walls that stood sentinel before them. The sun dipped further, painting the sky in hues of gold and violet as night began to envelope the encampment. Joshua felt the weight of the challenge before him. The sturdy walls of Jericho stood not only as a barrier of brick and mortar, but also as a testament to the fears and doubts of his people. As the shadows lengthened, he turned to the elders surrounding him, their faces etched with determination and uncertainty alike. "Let each man and woman of Israel look inward tonight," Joshua proclaimed, his voice steady yet softening at the edges. "For Jericho may be a stronghold of stone, but the greatest sieges lie within our hearts." He remembered the sacred stories handed down through generations, the trials of Joseph, the courage of David, the faith of Moses. Each tale was woven with struggle and triumph, revealing how trust and persistence brought the people closer to their destiny. Yet, as he reflected, he understood the difficulties they all still faced. Would the echoes of their trials inform their resolute steps forward, or would they cast shadows of doubt over their path? As twilight settled, Joshua gathered the tribes of Israel for a time of reflection and prayer. They lit lanterns that flickered like stars against the fabric of approaching night. Story after story poured forth. The elders spoke of their doubts and victories, while the younger generation listened with wide eyes, enraptured by the collective memory of their people. That a child, small and curious, stood at the feet of the elders. "But what if we fail?" she asked innocently, her voice barely louder than a whisper. "What if we are not brave enough?" The question hung heavily in the air, a reminder of the uncertainty that lingered in every heart. But Joshua knelt before her, looking into her clear eyes. "Even in failure, little one, there is a lesson. Our God walks with us through valleys of doubt. Every challenge is an invitation to grow. We are learning to trust, just as the stories have taught us." Pondering this, he couldn't help but think of Rahab. What stirred in her heart that drove her to aid the spies? In her house hung a scarlet thread, not just a symbol of allegiance, but perhaps a beacon of hope that could illuminate the walls encasing their collective fears. As their thoughts drifted toward Jericho's heart, they yearned to understand the mind of a woman who once dwelled in the shadows of judgment and yet boldly chose to embrace faith. As the night deepened, a specter of hope began to take shape. Would they, the Israelites, learn from the scars of their past to embrace the future? Would the walls of Jericho echo back their trust and faithfully collapse, revealing the promise of the land that awaited them? Or would their reluctance to confront their own internal battles cause them to falter? Joshua arose, inspired by the gathering's poignant questions and reflections. "Tomorrow, we will walk around the city, not just as warriors, but as believers. Each step will be a testament to our faith. Each trumpet blast a call to release the misgivings that bind us." The people murmured in unison, a river of support swelling among them. Yet a question loomed ever larger in Joshua's heart. Could this journey not only bring them victory over enemies, but usher them into deeper communion with God? What would the outcome reveal about the strength of their faith and unity? As they settled into the night, Joshua found himself staring into the flickering flames of their lanterns. The embers danced with restless energy, and he couldn't shake the repetitive echo of that childish question. Would the dawn bring not just victory, but the reconciliation of their hearts with the promises laid before them? The mystery unveiled itself slowly, still unfulfilled, much like the fate of Jericho that awaited the morning light. As the first light of dawn crested the horizon, a soft glow enveloped the encampment. Joshua rose before the sun, his spirit both heavy with responsibility and buoyed by the hope nurtured in the night. The air was crisp and filled with anticipation. Today was to be more than a mere march. It was an embodiment of faith, a testament to unyielding belief in Yahweh's promises. That he gathered the men and women, the elders and the children, all drawn into the circle of purpose beneath the open sky. The vastness around them reminded him of the infinite scope of God's will, a canvas wide and rich, stretching beyond the confines of their immediate fears. He raised his voice, steady and inviting. "Today, we walk as one. The walls of Jericho stand tall, but our faith is taller. With every step, let us peel away the layers of doubt that shield our hearts." As they set forth, the sound of sandals upon the dry earth resonated like a heartbeat. The priests carried the Ark of the Covenant before them, the sacred vessel emblematic of God's presence. Each step drew them closer not only to the wall, but to an understanding of the long path they had traveled, a journey through history, faith, and the heart's unraveling. The wisdom of the stories they had shared filled the air with purpose. Joshua recalled the faith of Abraham, who ventured into the unknown under God's command, or how Elijah stood steadfast against the prophets of Baal, trusting that his God would answer. Each moment of their history whispered encouragement, guiding their steps. As they circled Jericho, the stronghold stood imposingly still, a reminder of the fears they had carried for so long, now laid bare against the unyielding resolve of faith. The horns of the priests sounded, breaking the stillness, their deep cries echoing against the stone walls. In that sound, they found the rhythm of an ancient promise, a call to awaken the dormant hopes nestled deep within their spirits. With each circuit around the city, a peculiar sensation began to unfold within Joshua. It was as though the embers of doubt his people had carried were changing into flickering flames of courage. Were their fears smoldering to ashes as they proclaimed their faith aloud? His heart felt buoyant, yet a question lingered beneath the surface. How would God reveal himself today? As dusk approached, they prepared for the seventh and final circuit. The anticipation thickened, swirling like the wind around them. Joshua raised his voice, urging his people to raise their voices in unison. Shout with triumph, for the Lord has given us this city. And as they lifted their voices, a tremor rippled through Jericho. It wasn't the sound that came from their mouths alone, but the collective creation of faith, a force that felt more potent than the very stones that surrounded them. It was a revelation that they were not merely fighting physical limitations, but dismantling the intangible barriers within their own hearts. As the walls began to tremble, Joshua dared to believe for a moment that in their utter surrender both to the path ahead and to the divine mystery that lay within, they were shaking not just the foundations of Jericho, but also the chains that had bound their people for generations. And yet, amid the rise of a glorious shout, a bewildering question danced. Just beyond Joshua's grasp, what truth lay behind the collapse of these walls? Was their faith powerful enough to shatter the strongest barriers, or were there deeper mysteries still concealed, waiting to be unveiled in the echo of crumbling stones? These reflections lingered heavy in the air as they awaited God's final word in the gathering dust and echoing cries. As the final notes of their jubilant shouts reverberated into the fading light, an otherworldly hush descended over the encampment. The silence, pregnant with possibility, gripped Joshua's heart like a numbness that spread through his limbs. He could feel the energy of the moment coalescing into something profound, an imminent awakening. Yet the shadows of uncertainty danced just beyond his vision, urging him to delve deeper into the mysteries surrounding them. Amid their exuberance, Joshua directed an observant gaze towards the imposing walls of Jericho. There still stood the formidable structure, yet the air thrummed with an expectancy, as if the very stones had heard their cries and were deliberating a response. He stepped away from the throng, moving closer to the walls, an impulse surging within him, an urge to touch and to understand. As he approached, tremors rippled through the ground beneath his feet, and he could feel the whisper of ancient histories pulsating within the earth. The people were behind him, still caught in a fervor, but he felt drawn towards a deeper contemplation. What divine orchestration was at play? What sacred conversations had transpired on these grounds before the foundation of time itself? Before him, the arid dust began to swirl, as though summoned by an unseen force. In that moment, Joshua's heart thundered with a realization. The walls of Jericho were not merely structures of stone and mortar. They were also fortifications of the human spirit, embodying the fears, struggles, and sins passed down through generations. The barriers separating the people from their promise were not solely physical. They were reflections of an internal strife, manifestations of distrust reaching back through time. As he stood there, a thought flickered through his mind, a fragment of an ancient prophecy revealing itself amidst the tumult. And the walls will come down, and the hearts will be set free. Was this not more than the promise of physical conquest? It felt as though the promise of God was woven intricately into the very fabric of the earth and the awakening of their faith. Noting the change in his people's fervor, Joshua turned back to them and raised his hands, beckoning them to cease their shouting. They looked to him, half questioning and filled with anticipation. "Beloved ones," he called out, his voice steady and resonant. "It is time to listen, not only to the echoes of our voices but to the whispers of the Lord himself. We must prepare to witness something extraordinary, something that may render our understanding of faith and promise radically transformed." As the last echoes of their shouts faded into a quiet anticipation, the ground beneath Joshua trembled again, this time more violently. A splintering sound cracked through the air, like a distant thunder. The walls began to shift, and stones rocked against one another, as if they too were straining to reveal the truth within. Then, as if the heavens had decided to intervene, a sudden vibration coursed through the stone. It was as if the spirit of the city had awakened, yearning for recognition. The crowd gasped in unison, the women clutched their children's hands tighter, and the men gripped their swords, uncertain how to respond to this supernatural tide. As the tremors intensified, a part of the wall peeled away and crashed down, unveiling a hidden path leading into the heart of Jericho. A thick mist rose from the ruin, concealing the landscape ahead like a shroud. Joshua stood there, breathless, caught between the wonder and the burden of choice. Should they venture forth into this uncharted territory, filled with both promise and peril? And in that silence, as the first stones fell to the ground, another question began to weave itself into the fabric of their unfolding narrative. Were these walls merely a barrier to be broken, or were they a conduit of revelation, beckoning them into an understanding of faith that stretched far beyond their wildest expectations? What mysteries awaited them within the ruins of Jericho, and how would they forever change the understanding of their covenant with Yahweh? As the dust settled and the echoes of the falling stones reverberated through the encampment, Joshua took a cautious step forward. He could feel the weight of anticipation in the air, a sense that everything was poised on the brink of profound revelation. With every heartbeat, he could sense the divide between what had long been hoped for and the reality looming ahead. The crowd stirred, a mixture of fear and awe as they stared into the gaping wound of the city's wall. Their faces reflected a myriad of emotions. Some dared to hope, while others clung to doubt. Joshua understood this duality well. He too wrestled with the pull of uncertainty, and the promise sparked in his heart. "Gather your courage," he called out, his voice a steady anchor in the swirling confusion. "This is not merely the collapse of stone, but a divine invitation. We must step forward and embrace what is to come." With conviction deepening his tone, he urged them to move closer. Across the threshold where fear met faith, as they hesitated, the mist began to dance, swirling in shapes that evoked memories of long-forgotten tales. In that swirling haze, Joshua caught fleeting glimpses, icons of past struggles, families separated by choices, and ancestors wrestling with the very same fears he felt now. It was a divine tapestry woven through the ages, and in this moment, he understood that it wasn't just Jericho they were meant to conquer, but also the history of their people. With firm resolve, Joshua took the lead, guiding them through the entrance of the fallen wall. The path narrowed as they delved deeper into the heart of Jericho, and with each step, the air crackled with an electric vibrancy. The whispers of ancient clamors seemed to echo back through time, inviting the chosen into their own story of redemption. Inside, the remnants of the city revealed themselves, shadows of homes once vibrant, remnants of lives lived amid laughter and sorrow. Tattered banners hung limp against the cold stone walls, hints of a life that once thrived, yet they were now adorned with the dust of neglect. Joshua could feel the weight of unfulfilled dreams and broken hearts pressed into the very ground beneath him. Sensing an urgency, he called to the people, "Look around. These ruins tell the story of lives intertwined with the trials of faith. Do not think that we come here merely to claim conquest. We come here to learn, to heal, and to awaken the spirit within ourselves." What does Jericho teach us about walls that divide? What lessons are hidden within these stones, waiting for us to decipher? Silence enveloped them, save for the soft rustle of the mist as it twirled around their feet. The uncertainty that gripped their hearts began to thaw under the warmth of shared purpose. The crowd's demeanor shifted, the bonds of fear loosened as curiosity and hope emerged. They were not alone in their journey. Centuries of faith bore witness to their every step. As they explored further, Joshua's spirit soared, sensing that the stones were more than mere bricks. They were guardians of God's timeless promises. Beneath the weight of history, he discovered reports of previous leaders and prophets, their voices still reverberating against the stones, their prayers woven with the fabric of this very land. And yet, as the exploratory light illuminated the path ahead, a profound question lingered in Joshua's heart. Were these remnants merely echoes of the past, or did they possess the potential to reshape their future? The mystery deepened as he understood that perhaps the true conquest was not simply the city of Jericho, but an intricate journey towards an inner awakening. What transformation awaited them as they peeled back the layers of fear and expectation? What new understanding would be birthed from the ashes of a city that once stood defiantly? Would they be ready to receive the call that echoed through time, or would fear bind them to their walls once again? As dawn's first light stretched across the remnants of Jericho, an electric stillness enveloped the city, framing the fallen walls in a soft glow that felt both ethereal and profound. The Israelites, having traversed through the ruins, stood at the epicenter of uncertainty and realization, the threshold that separated the known from the unknown, fear from faith. Joshua raised his voice, strong yet tender, commanding the attention of the people still caught in the reverberations of his call. Look around. We stand not merely as conquerors of a city, but as seekers of deeper truths. Jericho, now laid bare, reveals to us the fragility of walls, those made of stone, and those crafted from fear and doubt within our own hearts. As his words hung in the air, a child, the same one who had once asked about failing, spoke up. But what if we still feel scared? What if the walls we build inside ourselves are stronger than the walls of Jericho? Her question pierced through the quiet, a poignant reminder that vulnerability dwelled within them all. Joshua knelt down to her level, searching her eyes with earnestness. Each of us carries walls. Some we build to protect ourselves, while others confine us. But today we have a choice. Just as these stones crumbled before our faith, so too can the walls within us fall if we dare to believe. Each moment of sacred vulnerability can birth strength that will resonate far beyond ourselves. As he stood, the murmurs of consent flowed through the crowd like a gentle spring breeze. With every heartbeat, they began to understand. This journey was a collective one. They were unearthing not just history, but the path toward healing, a revelation entwined in the very essence of their shared soul. Joshua led them deeper into the heart of Jericho, where the deeper fragments of lives lived awaited discovery. Clusters of people gathered in conversation, awakening memories of struggle, resilience, and faith that had survived the test of time. Stories emerged, lines of ancestry tangled with hardship, yet enriched through hope and redemption. They recounted the tale of Rahab, whose scarlet thread now served as a metaphorical beacon illuminating their way. Her faith changed the fate of a city, Joshua proclaimed, his spirit soaring as he observed the awakening amongst his people. Let us embrace our heritage and understand that we are all intertwined. The past does not bind us. It frees us to redefine our destiny. With every step through the remnants, barriers that had been insurmountable transformed into opportunities for connection, insight, and healing. The echoes of laughter danced through the ruins, mingled with tears of reckoning. Each individual released from their personal strongholds as unity patched together their fragmented spirits. Amidst the ruins, Joshua led them to a sacred circle, the earth beneath them pulsating with the weight of their history. Now is the time to lay down our burdens. Let us share the pain, the joy, and the promise of what lies ahead. For in this reclamation, we prepare our hearts not just to conquer others, but to embrace the universal call to gratitude and grace. As they began to share their burdens, the atmosphere thickened with authenticity and transformation. They voiced their fears, doubts bred from their years wandering in the wilderness and the chaos of the unknown laid ahead. Men, women, and children all joined hands together, their collective heartbeat synchronizing with a rhythm attuned to grace. In that sacred moment, something remarkable happened. As they embraced vulnerability, the ground beneath them trembled once more, not as an echo of crumbling walls, but as a wave of renewal. Light burst forth through the crevices of fallen stones, cascading like golden threads interweaving their lives. It was as if the very fabric of Jericho itself had begun to pulse with life, recognizing the depth of their faith awakening within. Feel that? Joshua beamed, his heart swelling with pride, joy, and divine affection. This is the power of living truthfully. When we collectively face our fears and embrace our stories, we become more than we could ever sit behind walls to be. And with that, the people marveled at the transformative power of their faith, one that no longer sat on the periphery of their hearts, but flooded into every corner and crevice. They began to understand walls were indeed not just meant to be torn down, but diverted into avenues of possibility. In this reciprocal act of breaking free, a powerful revelation emerged within Joshua's spirit. Not only have we conquered Jericho, he declared, gesturing to the ruins, but we have once again witnessed the grace of God flow through our vulnerabilities, the very grace that invites us to move beyond these stones. Today, we redefine our legacy, that which will ripple through time. As the sun shone brightly now, illuminating their way, the Israelites stepped forward not just as soldiers, but as architects of their future. They were united, transformed by their faith, ready to conquer not just territories, but the very essence of what it meant to trust. Their journey was no longer about walls, but about the open skies above and the road ahead, the journey to honor their past, while creating a future woven beautifully through faith, hope, love, and endless possibilities. And thus, as they marched out from the ruins of Jericho, their hearts sang a song of redemption that echoed into eternity, the kind that would change not just their own hearts, but generations to come. They bore witness to a truth even greater than walls. The heart finds its strength not through resistance, but through the courage to embrace its treasures and share them openly, even amidst the fragility of human existence. That was the power unleashed that day, a shining testament of how a people could rebuild from the ashes of what once was, forging a new story christened by faith, forever altering the landscape of their spirits and the world around them. Faith, after all, is not merely a promise. It is the vessel through which divine transformations flow, breaking free from the confines of what once held us tightly, leading us into the vast expanse of endless grace.